Senator Blackburn, you criticized employees of Facebook and Twitter for acting like the gods of Silicon Valley, which I thought was too explosive not to repeat. This is your second time hearing from them in less than a month. I'm curious, were you any more or less satisfied with what they've had to say this time around?
I think that Mr. Dorsey was more prepared today. As you remember, at the Commerce Committee hearing, he kind of resembled Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway. So he was more prepared today. Pardon me. But I felt like there was an evasiveness from each of them on taking responsibility for the way their content moderators, whether that is via algorithms or human beings, the way they subjectively apply Section 230 and the definition within that law to frame objectionable content. And as you heard Mr. Zuckerberg say today, that there needed to be more specificity in that, which is exactly what we're doing in my Online Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Act. So we're going to clarify the utilizations for liability protection and preserve it for new market entrants and smaller searches like Duck and Bing and then Parler in the social media space, all of these new entrants, Emily, and then be more specific in the language of objectionable content and a reasonableness standard that will have an application through the legislation, and then also quite a bit of discussion today over who is a publisher, who is a content creator, who is a news outlet, and what social media is supposed to be, which they're supposed to be the new public square. So we're going to define a content creator in the legislation, and hopefully it will help them to stay within the guardrails that they are given. It will help them to be able to explain why they are taking down certain posts, why they are blocking, why they are putting notes on post and questioning validity of post. And you know, if this is something that was equally applied to liberals and Democrats, you could say that's their business model. That is not what is happening.
Okay.
We see it happening to conservatives, to Christian entertainers, the list goes on.
Well, let's speak about that. The president is still using these platforms to claim voter fraud, and there is still no evidence of that. Shouldn't these companies have a role in policing misinformation, even if it comes from the President of the United States?
One of the things that I thought was very interesting with Mr. Dorsey, he continues to say that world leaders ought to have access to his platform. He has never censored the Ayatollah for shouting death to America, nor has he censored Xi Jinping or Putin, but he has censored Donald Trump repeatedly. Now, he can dispute what he wants to about and have an opinion about the elections and how the elections played out, or if there was fraud in the elections with some of the way the ballots were mailed out or the way ballots were harvested. He can have an opinion, but you know what? People are going to express that opinion. I say regularly, I may not agree with you, but I'm going to protect your right to be able to express your opinion. And this is called free speech. So they kind of jump the shark a few times, if you will, when they rush to take down something. I put up, and I mentioned this in the hearing today, Emily, I put up something about the Trump Accountability Project, that people ought not to be blacklisted because they worked with the Trump administration or during the Trump administration. And that tweet was flagged. And it said nothing about the election and nothing about election results. But it points to the fact that, are they making lists? Are they monitoring some group of people more closely than others? I believe they are, and we want to see their list.
So here's my question. It seems like Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle agree that there's a problem and want there to be change.
Yes.
But both parties have very different opinions of what the best outcome is. So I'm wondering, do you think it's actually possible to get to an agreement on regulation and what that regulation should be?
Absolutely.
I mean, both CEOs have said they're open to it, but we don't know what that's actually going to look like. And there seem to be very different opinions about what the, path forward actually should be.
But there is a path, and that's the important thing. You and I have talked regularly about the need for preemption in the privacy space and to have one set of rules for the entire ecosystem with one regulator. Well, we have a privacy bill which encompasses the Browser Act, which we've discussed, that is moving forward. There is bipartisan participation in that, and that bill is going through the Commerce Committee. Likewise, as you heard today, when it comes to Section 230, there is agreement that something needs to be done. Now, I have my legislation. You have the Earn It Act, which is Senator Blumenthal and Senator Graham participating in that. What you're going to see is we're going to take pieces of the Online Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Bill, the Earn It Act, other components that are there. We're going to craft a bill, and we're going to do what big tech has proven they are incapable of doing, which is to regulate them and to put these guidelines in place and to say, this is your lane, and you are going to stay in this lane, and you're not going to get over here into these other things unless you change your business model. Now, the issue of antitrust also came up today, and that is a different discussion, but there is agreement on each side of the aisle that this is a worthy discussion. Indeed, you have DOJ looking at Google right now because of the monopoly on search, and the lawsuit, DOJ has filed that lawsuit against Google. You have the FTC in review of Facebook and their policies, and those components are moving forward.
Okay. On a slightly different topic, Senator, I want to ask you about Judy Shelton's nomination to the Fed Board of Governors, which failed to win enough support to advance to a final vote and confirm her for the job. Do you know whether Leader McConnell plans to try again, and if so, how soon?
It is my understanding that this is going to be tried again. I do not know what the timeline is on that.
And before we go, obviously the issues around Facebook and Twitter do relate back to the president's refusal to concede the election. As we discussed, he continues to claim voter fraud. Do you think that it's time that he concede? Are you concerned that there won't be a peaceful transition of power, which is important to any government?
There is going to be a peaceful transition, whether it is a Trump second term or a Biden presidency. There is a process that is laid out, that is followed. As you remember, when Al Gore was running, there was a 37-day process that we went through before a decision was finally made. So let's let that process play out, and then let's make certain that people are going to be confident in knowing that whomever is elected, deemed elected, is someone who is there. I have to tell you, it has been painful to watch my friends and colleagues across the aisle go through 4 years of not accepting that Donald Trump won the 2016 election. We have lived through Russia collusion, Ukraine collusion, impeachment, a post office, whatever they called it, and all of this daily attack because you had those on the left say, we consider him to be an illegitimate candidate and winner of this election. So let's make certain we do the work and we solve this right now.